Hello everyone, if you are new to my channel, welcome, and if you aren't, welcome back. Today I have a speed paint for you of ya boy, Guzma. So the main thing I really wanted to do with this art is to try not to be as zoomed in as possible when I'm doing the line art, considering that I do have a terrible habit of working too close to what I'm drawing, and it sometimes makes for a terrible watching experience when it comes to actually watching a speed paint. So you will notice that I do zoom in at certain points, and that's only because I'm going in and refining details to the line art after I've done my preliminary drawing of it. Now, funnily enough, this drawing is actually the first time, or was the first time, that I have ever drawn Guzma, and I'm actually pretty damn happy with it. I really wanted it to still have the feeling and partial maybe stylization of Pokemon, but more in my actual drawing style, and I think that I achieved that. And look, I actually drew more hands. Yeah, one's hidden in a pocket, but I never said it was perfect, so I definitely think that one of the most challenging parts of this piece was, first of all, drawing that hand, but also was in fact translating Guzma into my style, because I have a particularly angular style for the most part, and even with Guzma, who's a villain, he is drawn with fairly soft angles due to the fact that it's more, that's the more like Pokemon style. Another thing that was really hard was not zooming in. Like, I know that was the point, but it was seriously, I felt that my style was so sloppy, I couldn't see anything, and then everything was going to look terrible in the end, and genuinely at some points I was so like hunched and crouched over my tablet with my face so close to the screen, I looked like some sort of fucking gargoyle over my desk. Like, I'm genuinely surprised that my roommate didn't come and ask what the fuck I was doing and if I was okay, because I was not. And with digital art and inking, I've honestly forgotten the feeling of what traditional inking feels like. And as I was forcing myself not to super zoom in with most of the preliminary line art, it really brought me back to those days of old where I was hunching and squinting over my traditional art as well. And I honestly think that it was a really good exercise for me. It forced me to be really loose with my lines, as well as be more decisive with them as well. I could see the whole picture and how the lines and their weight worked in correlation with one another, and I think I got a really good result after all. It actually didn't take longer than how I usually do line art either, which I was slightly, maybe a little bit more than slightly surprised at. I don't know if I'm going to try to do this more in the future for the sake of me hunching over and squinting in attempts to see better, even though that doesn't make any sense. But it's definitely a challenge. I encourage those of you who do digital art to try to do your next piece while zooming in as little as possible. Like I said, it forces you to be looser and more dynamic with your strokes, which can prevent your line art from looking stale if that's something that you feel like you tend to have a problem with. And well, flats are flats. For me, I usually like to use the eyedropper tool with a reference, which is why you will see the small reference of Guzma I have up in the corner sometimes. And then I will tweak the colors slightly to my own wants and to my own vision and kind of how I perceive what I want it to look like in the end. I like to use the magic wand tool for picking the biggest swaths of color and then going from there. I usually like more saturated colors, again, like I said, when it comes to my finished product. And as you will see in a little bit, when I start shading, I actually change some of the colors to add depth and color so that there are contrasting and complementary shades within the piece. When we jump into the shading, you will notice that there seems to be a filter over the colors, and there actually is. I like to have different lighting filters sometimes, and the filter I've used on this is a yellow to purple diagonal gradient, and a yellow to purple that's more on the pastel side than on the saturated jewel tone side. On Guzma's figure, I wanted to use colors from his palette to light him. So that's what I decided to use, because purple and yellow are the main colors in his color palette, besides white and black, and I didn't want to use white and black. I also made the line art a softer brown so that it wouldn't be so harsh in correlation with the other colors. Sometimes things can seem, and when I say things, your drawing or your piece might seem a lot more unrealistic or a lot more comic book or flat if you have really, really dark, stark line art. And sometimes you can push the line art back and make it equalize out with your shading and your color if you just tone your line art. And if that's something that you think and that's something that you're looking for, that is a way that you can help that. But sometimes people like really, really stark line art. It just depends on your style and kind of what you're looking for. Like I said earlier, for my shading, like 99% of the time, I try not to just shade with a darker version of the original color. I try to use different shades from the original palette and use those for shading or add reds and blues. You'll see here that my shading doesn't necessarily start off that way, but it ends up that way when I use tonal shifting, which is a setting that I really, really like using in Clip Studio Paint. I also keep the shadows darker because I took off the filter that I had placed in the beginning. I just placed that as a general checking back point, so like I could turn the filter on, see how the shading looks, see how it needs to be adjusted, and then turn the filter off and not have to do all of the corrections at the end, where I could color correct and shade correct as I was working. I did this because I knew, like I said, the filter is going to lighten and soften everything because it's a more pastel color of the yellow and the purple, and it's going to soften everything. And if I didn't have harsher shadows, then it's going to get washed out when I put the filter on it. And so in the finished product at the end of the video, you will see that the shadows are much more balanced and nice in the end once I have all the shading and the filter on top. And that's really all I have to say on this piece. I had fun trying new techniques, as well as just drawing Guzma since he's such an interesting and super distinct character. Most of the time, even if you don't know what he's from, you know that he is a very unique character with his character design. So I think it was really fun to just translate that into my style. So yeah, thank you everybody so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this speed paint. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down in the comment section, obviously, and I will try my best to answer them. And don't forget to do all the things YouTubers beg for, like liking and subscribing and sharing and commenting and stuff. It really does help us out. And remember, friends, do no harm, but take no shit. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.